All right, ready to go deep on King Lear.
Always up for a Shakespeare deep dive.
This one's got layers, right? Historical echoes, psychology, all that good stuff.
It's incredible how relevant it still feels, even centuries later.
Right. I mean, you open the play, and boom, King Lear's deciding to split his kingdom based on, get this, which daughter loves him most.
Talk about a recipe for disaster, huh?
Seriously. You'd think a king would have a better succession plan.
Well, that's where things get really interesting. This whole outlandish premise, it's Shakespeare tapping into the anxieties of his time.
Oh, do tell.
Yeah.
What kind of anxieties are we talking about?
Think about it. We've got King James I, fresh on the throne, trying to wrangle a newly unified England and Scotland.
Right. Not exactly smooth sailing for him.
Exactly. And here comes Shakespeare putting on this play about a king literally tearing his kingdom apart.
Whoa, you're saying Lear's little division wasn't just bad parenting. It was like a giant mirror to society.
Yeah, pretty much. And knowing Shakespeare, there's even more to it. See, King James was really pushing this whole father of the nation image, expected a certain, shall we say, enthusiasm from his subjects.
So kind of like Lear demanding those over-the-top declarations of love from his daughters.
Right. He doesn't want genuine affection. He wants ego-stroking, validation. And Goneril and Regan, they give him exactly that.
Except it's all a big fat lie.
The Shakespearean version of that's what you wanted to hear.
Yeah, poor Cordelia. She's the youngest, the actually loving one. And she refuses to play the game.
It's tragic because in any other family drama, her honesty would be the right move.
You'd think so. But Lear, he's so blinded by this need for praise, he can't see it.
Mistakes her genuine love for defiance.
And that is where, my friend, the wheels come off.
Off a cliff, more like. He banishes Cordelia, splits the kingdom between the steaming sisters, and we all know how well that turns out.
Oh, it's a train wreck waiting to happen for sure. But gotta say, Goneril and Regan, they are top-tier villains.
Oh, masterfully crafted. The way they manipulate their father, the ruthlessness once they're in power. Chills.
But you're right, it goes beyond just bad family dynamics, even on a royal scale.
This is Shakespeare at his finest, giving us a peek into human nature itself. The good, the bad, the downright ugly.
Oh yeah, we see it all. Loyalty tested, ambition running wild.
Sanity pushed to its absolute limit.
And even then, the villains, like Edmund.
Yeah.
Something about them.
Ah, Edmund. The OG poster boy for ambition gone wrong.
But compelling.
Yeah.
You almost root for him, even though he's awful.
That's Shakespeare for you. Edmund's what we call a Machiavellian character. Cunning, manipulative, willing to do whatever it takes to get what he wants.
So no moral compass whatsoever. Sounds a little too familiar, honestly.
And yet he has this charisma, this complete lack of remorse you can't help but watch. Fascinating.
Makes you wonder, is there a little bit of Edmund in all of us?
Perhaps. But luckily we also have characters like the Fool to remind us there's another way.
Oh, the Fool! Now there's a character that deserves his own spotlight.
He's more than just comic relief, that's for sure. The Fool in King Lear. He's one of the most fascinating characters Shakespeare ever created.
He's like, he sees right through everything. The only one who can call Lear out, and he does it with this blend of wit and just heartbreak.
Absolutely. He's Lear's conscience, but instead of lecturing, it's jokes, songs, riddles.
It's almost like Shakespeare saying, sometimes humor, that's the only way to deal with the really unbearable stuff.
Right, that classic Shakespearean mix of tragedy and comedy.
But in King Lear, it feels different, even more so. Like those moments of laughter, they make the tragedy hit even harder.
You're spot on. The laughter makes us vulnerable, then bam, the tragedy hits you tenfold. It's a roller coaster.
Speaking of roller coasters, can we talk about the Gloucester subplot for a minute? It's like Shakespeare took the whole dysfunctional family thing and just went for it.
It's true. You've got Gloucester, another father figure, making some seriously questionable choices about his sons, Edgar and Edmund. And Edmund, well, we know what he's all about.
Oh yeah, Edmund's the puppet master in this whole thing. Tricks Gloucester into thinking Edgar's plotting against him, which is just...
The irony is palpable. And that theme of blindness, Shakespeare really lays it on thick in this subplot.
Right. Literally, with Gloucester, after Edmund gets his way. But then there's Lear, blind to his daughter's true natures.
Like Shakespeare's saying, sometimes the worst kind of blindness, it's not physical at all. It's the blindness of the heart.
And that blindness, whether it's literal or metaphorical, it just leads to suffering. It's part of what makes this play so hard to watch, but also impossible to look away from.
Exactly. It reminds us that none of us are immune to being deceived, to messing up, to experiencing loss and pain.
We were talking about King James I earlier. the historical context. But I was reading that Shakespeare actually drew inspiration from this older story, The Legend of Lear of Britain. Did he stick to it, or?
Shakespeare, sticking to the source material. Come on now. He definitely borrowed elements from the Lear legend, but he also made it his own, especially when it came to the ending.
Okay, now I have to know, what did he change? Give me the Shakespearean twist.
Let's just say Shakespeare wasn't afraid of going there. In the original, Cordelia, she actually succeeds. She leads an army, restores her father, and they live, if not happily ever after, at least peacefully.
Okay, but this is Shakespeare, so where's the catch?
He flipped the script.
Yeah.
In his version, well, it's not exactly a happy ending for Cordelia or Lear for anyone, really. It's brutal.
Which makes it even more interesting that King Lear has resonated for so long. Why do you think that is? If it's so bleak, what keeps us coming back?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I think it's because, deep down, we need to confront the big stuff, even the painful stuff. Death, loss, the realization that sometimes life just isn't fair.
So it's like watching King Lear. It's a way to experience those emotions, but safely. We can confront them through the characters without having to go through it ourselves.
Exactly. It's a kind of catharsis. We watch, we feel, but we don't actually have to live through it ourselves.
Heavy stuff. But it makes you think, doesn't it? Shakespeare holding up a mirror, showing us it all. The beauty, the ugliness, the strength, the weakness. Everything.
And the language, the way he gets inside the characters' heads. Even with all the tragedy, there are these moments of, grace, hope, and it makes everything more powerful somehow.
It's true. You see it in Cordelia, that unwavering love for Lear, even after everything. And Kent, staying loyal even in disguise. Those moments, man.
Right in the feels, it's like Shakespeare saying, hey, even when it's darkest, even surrounded by betrayal, madness, there's still good in the world. Love, loyalty, compassion.
We need those reminders to get through to the end of the play, almost. Like if we can just hold on to those bits of goodness, we can handle the tragedy.
You said it. That flicker of hope, that belief in redemption, that's what makes King Lear endure, breaks our hearts, but reminds us what it means to be human.
It's funny. We've talked about all that goes wrong in this play, the choices, the fallout. It's like, what if it had gone differently? What if Lear had just listened to Cordelia at the start?
The million-dollar question, right? What keeps people discussing this play centuries later? The what-ifs, the could-have-beens.
It's like the real tragedy isn't just their deaths, but that it might have been avoided.
Hits hard, doesn't it? The fragility of everything, the consequences of pride and bad choices. It's a cautionary tale for the ages.
This deep dive has been incredible, I have to say. I feel like I've got a whole new perspective on King Lear. But for our listeners, the ones who know this play inside and out, I'm curious, if you were directing a modern-day King Lear, what would that even look like?
Oh, now there's a challenge. I think setting it in like a cutthroat family business, that'd be something else. The stakes, the betrayals, the fall from grace.
Yeah.
Intense.
And the casting. Oh, the possibilities are endless. Well, on that note, we'll leave you with this, Scott. If you were casting a modern-day King Lear, who would you pick? For Lear, Goneril, Regan, Cordelia, and of course our scheming Edmundst. Let us know. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into King Lear.